This, a relic from 2005. Back when this phone was new, YouTube was barely a year old. There were no iPhones. There was no TikTok. The world was a completely different place. To most of you watching this is just a piece of plastic junk. But for a man named Thomas White, this piece of plastic was a death sentence. He didn't use it to orchestrate a cartel hit. He didn't use it to run a county lines operation. He stole it, and then he gave it back. But as I sit here recording this on Thursday, April 23, 2026, Thomas White is still locked inside the UK prison system. He has been inside for 14 years for a crime that carries a maximum sentence of a few months today. Welcome back to SchemeTok. Today, we aren't looking at street-level hustles. We are deep diving into the biggest, most destructive scheme currently operating in the United Kingdom. It's a scheme run by the state. It's called the IPP sentence, and it has buried over 2,000 men alive in what officers call the ghost wings of our Category A and B prisons. While the government is currently opening the gates for thousands of violent offenders early just to fix the 2026 overcrowding crisis, these ghosts are trapped in a legal glitch. And just hours ago, the Court of Appeal made a ruling that blew this entire case wide open. I'm going to show you the psychological torture the mainstream media won't touch. This is Case File, IPP. To understand the trap, you have to understand the arrogance of the system that built it. In 2005, the government introduced Imprisonment for Public Protection, or IPP. The pitch to the public was simple. We are going to lock up the worst of the worst, the terrorists, the predators, and we won't let them out until they prove they are safe. It sounded great on paper, but in practice, it was a disaster. Judges started handing out IPP sentences like parking tickets. People stealing flower pots, shoplifting food, or getting into a drunken scuffle at a pub were hit with it. Here's how the scheme worked. You'd get a tariff, a minimum time to serve. Say, 2 years. But because of those 3 little letters, IPP, when your 2 years were up, you didn't get to go home. You had to go before a parole board and prove you were no longer a risk to the public. And this is where the trap snaps shut. How do you prove you're safe? You have to complete state-mandated rehabilitation courses. Anger management, victim empathy, you name it. But here is the brutal reality of the UK prison estate in 2026. Whether you're in Barlinnie, Wandsworth, or Hampshire, the system is at 99% capacity. The courses are cancelled. The staff are burned out or quitting. The waitlists for these classes are 5, sometimes 7 years long. It is the ultimate catch-22. You stay in prison because you haven't done the course, but you can't do the course because the prison is too overcrowded to run it. You are trapped in a bureaucratic perma-prison. Even Lord David Blunkett, the politician who actually wrote this law, has publicly stated it is his biggest regret. In 2012, the European Court of Human Rights ruled the sentences were completely arbitrary. The UK government was forced to abolish IPP sentences because they were legally and morally indefensible. But here is the savage part. When they abolished it, they didn't make it retroactive. They stopped handing it out to new prisoners, but for the thousands of men already inside, they threw away the key. They left them to rot. Let's talk about the human cost, because these aren't just statistics. This brings us back to Thomas White. Thomas was given an IPP tariff of 2 years for stealing that mobile phone. He has served 14. Imagine waking up every single day in a 6x-8 cell, watching the seasons change through bars, watching your family get older on the rare visits you get, and never knowing when, or if, you will ever get out. The human brain is not built to process indefinite confinement. The psychological toll is catastrophic. IPP prisoners have the highest rates of self-harm and suicide in the entire UK prison estate. By 2024, Thomas White's mind had completely snapped under the pressure. He developed severe psychosis and paranoid schizophrenia. His sister, Clara, has spent the last decade fighting the Ministry of Justice. She describes her brother not as a prisoner, but as a hostage. Thomas was so desperate, so broken by the lack of a release date, that he literally set himself on fire in his cell just to feel a sense of control. He was eventually transferred to a secure psychiatric hospital, but the system wasn't done with him. The reports from early 2026 show that because the hospital stabilized him on heavy medication, the Ministry of Justice wants to send him back to the exact same prison wing that destroyed his mind in the first place. Why? Because the system doesn't view him as a patient. It views him as an unrehabilitated IPP prisoner. There are currently over 230 IPP prisoners sitting in secure mental health units across the country, their brains physically altered by the stress of the sentence that never ends. The UN Special Rapporteur on Torture has officially condemned the UK government for this, calling it cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. Now, let's look at the absolute hypocrisy of the current situation. Today, right now in April 2026, the prison system is entirely gridlocked. To stop the prisons from literally overflowing, the government has enacted emergency measures. They are releasing violent offenders, people who have committed actual, serious bodily harm, after serving just 40% of their sentence. They are opening the front door for violent criminals because there is no room, while simultaneously keeping the back door bolted shut on 2,400 IPP prisoners who stole a phone or a bicycle over a decade ago. Why won't the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, just re-sentence them? It's simple. Political cowardice. No politician wants to be the one who signs the paper releasing 2,000 men who have been driven mad by the state, just in case one of them re-offends and it ends up on the front page of the tabloids. They would rather let these men die in their cells than risk bad PR. But the wall of silence is starting to crack. Which brings us to the breaking news today. Just hours ago, on April 23rd, the Criminal Cases Review Commission scored a massive victory. The Court of Appeal officially quashed the sentences of 6 IPP prisoners, including men like Jay Davis and Stuart O'Neill. These were guys who were handed indefinite sentences when they were just teenagers. The judges finally admitted that the system completely failed to account for their age, their maturity, and the utter injustice of the tariff. It is a massive win for those 6 men and their families. But it is a drop in the ocean. The Ministry of Justice's own internal projections state that without major legislative changes, there will still be hundreds of these ghosts locked up in the year 2030. Think about that. 25 years inside for crimes that would get you a suspended sentence and a fine today. This isn't justice. It is an ego-driven cover-up by a system that refuses to admit it made a catastrophic mistake. Here at SchemeTok, we don't just look at the players, we look at the board. If you have family trapped on an IPP wing, or if you've worked the landings and seen the reality of the ghost wings yourself, get in the comments right now. We need these stories on the record. We are 500 subscribers away from hitting the 10,000 milestone. If you want the raw truth, the deep dives, and the investigations that the algorithm usually tries to suppress, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and turn the bell on. I'm dropping the unedited case files from my Brave browser research in the description below. Go read the UN reports for yourself. The system wants them forgotten. We aren't going to let that happen. This file is officially open. See you in the next one.